And if I add 3 more zeros, that's a billion, right? So that's a whole lot. That's a whole lot of power. And just to recap, can anybody tell me what we use to measure electricity? Watt? That's a joke, by the way. Watt we use to make electricity, right? It's a watt. So we have 1 billion watts. Okay, so when my power plant is working, how many of these light bulbs do you think my power plant could light up? How many of these light bulbs? Yes, ma'am?
25.
25. It could do way more than 25. How about you?
65.
65? More than that. How about you? 1 million. It's even more than 1 million. It's even more than 1 million. Yes, sir, back there. And the Snoopy shirt. That's you.
3,000.
3,000. More than 3,000. It turns out 75 million
What?
light bulbs. 75 million light bulbs. It can also power 200 million iPhones. That's an amazing amount of power, right?
Even that's silly.
That's silly.
So that's how much power we generate at my power plant. Okay, so that's a lot of power, right? A lot of watts, right? That's how it runs. Okay. So with this motor again, so the way that we make electricity is we turn mechanical energy into electrical energy, right? And mechanical energy is anything that moves. Anything that moves is a machine, right? It's mechanical. Okay, so if I wanted to turn this coil that was 1 billion times the size of this, how could I make something turn like this? Does anybody have any guesses on how we could make something turn? Yes, sir.
Something like, magnets, and then you spin
You may, yeah. So how about I ask this question? What's the loudest thing anybody has ever heard in this room? Yes, sir. Stopping?
Stopping.
Stopping.
Like
Oh, like with stomping, yes, with your feet. I bet you I could think of something louder than that, though. Yes, sir.
Screaming.
Screaming is really loud, right?
my
Screaming is really loud. What makes an airplane fly? Do we know? Yes, we do. Engine, right? A jet engine. That's actually the loudest thing that I've ever heard. And it turns out that if you take this and make it 1 billion times this size, and you connect a jet engine to it, that's how we make electricity at my power plant. Instead of putting that jet engine on underneath the airplane to make it go, the airplane wing, we attach it to a coil, just like this. You should probably turn it on, right? And that's how we make electricity at my power plant. But that's not the only way that we can make electricity, right? There are other ways we can make electricity. Some things all around us that we can use. Did anybody think of some of those ideas?
You can use metal, then you can use metal stuff to make it move really fast.
What about if I did this, but I had a propeller? Would that turn it? So what could we use to turn a propeller instead of a jet engine that runs on natural gas?
What was the question?
It's around here all the time, and it feels like this when we go outside. Yes, sir.
Wind.
Wind, that's right. We can use wind also to turn a turbine. How about if we take water and we heat it up really, really hot? What does water turn into? Do we know? Let's see. Spider-Man.
Ice.
That's if we make it really, really cold, right? If it's really, really cold, it turns into ice and snow. But what if we make it really, really hot? Like, what if your mom fills a pot full of water and she puts it on the stove and turns on the burner? What does it turn into? Yes, ma'am.
Bubbles.
Bubbles, right? Well, what do we call those bubbles? Those bubbles are actually steam, that's right. So the other way we make electricity at my power plant is we use steam to turn a propeller, just like the wind or a jet engine. But that's it. At the end of the day, it's that simple to make electricity. Do you have a question?
How do you turn that on?
How do I turn that on? Well, that's a really good question. So the paper clips here are just a way to connect the battery to this thing that spins. So all I use is this little clip here. I'm gonna clip it on. And that's it. Kind of neat, huh? Very, very simple. Did I have another question? Yes.
What do you use? What do you use? Why did you bring the light bulb?
Why did I bring the light bulb? Because one of the easiest ways to see electricity is to use a light bulb, right? So we have, how many lights are in here? We have lots of lights. We have lots of lights, right? Lots, probably too many to count. And that's why, because light is often the easiest way for us to see electricity. So that's why I brought this.
He did that to
18.
himself.
Yeah, we have 18 lights, that's right. That's right. So, $15 or 18, right? There's quite a bit of light. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what I do at the power plant. So it's my job to actually make the electricity at the power plant that everybody uses in their house. So if I walked over to the light switch and I started turning the light switch on and off, okay, my power plant actually is changing how it moves to make that electricity either come on or turn off. So every time somebody turns on a light switch, my power plant has to change how it runs. So that's kind of neat, right? Well, it's my job to understand how we make that electricity in our power plant so that if it breaks, or so that if we want to build another power plant, or if we need more power, it's my job to actually figure out how to do that. And that's what engineers at a power plant do. So can anybody tell me, if you wanted to be an engineer and learn how to make electricity, what kind of subjects in school would you want to learn about? Vincent? Chemicals, yes. I am. I'm actually the type of engineer I am is a chemical engineer. So in a power plant, we use lots and lots of chemicals, right? Steam, water is a chemical. Everything around us is chemicals. So chemicals would be good. Can anybody think of some other subjects that you'd want to know to work in a power plant? How about a subject that uses numbers? Like counting or math. That's right, we use math all the time in a power plant. Can you think of other things? So chemicals are like science, right? So are there other sciences that you need to know in a power plant? Instead of chemistry, right? Maybe you need to know, yes ma'am? Science, yes. So we need to know things like physics or how computers work, right? Because we use computers all the time in our power plants to actually run the power plants and control them. Are there other subjects that maybe aren't so clear that we would need to learn about? Yes, sir. Yes, you need to know a lot about how electricity actually works. Can anybody tell me how fast electricity moves? It goes so fast that every second, electricity can travel around the world 6 times every second. That's how fast it goes. So in the blink of an eye, we can't even see it, it's that fast. So you have to understand a lot about how that works, right? So kind of neat. So when you decide that you want to work in a power plant, you go to school and you learn about things like math and science. But also, you have to be able to learn really well. And what's the best way often that we learn about all different kinds of things? How do we learn things? Yes, sir.
We learn about the ABC.
That's right. So a lot of our knowledge are in things like books, right? So if you want to be an engineer,